Welcome to Music Arts Collective's Sunday live stream this week. My name's Amanda Tosoff. I'm a jazz pianist, obviously, a composer and an educator based in Toronto, Ontario. And I am one of 3 co-founders of Music Arts Collective, which is a online music education website. And I am one of the co-founders alongside the wonderful Jody Prosnick, bassist and educator from Vancouver, and Francesca Fung, arts administrator, also from Vancouver. So we are having tons of fun putting on webinars, courses. We have lots of upcoming really fun events that we're working on. So, and today is one of them. So our live stream. So lately we've been doing some live stream conversations. And today is a little bit different. We're going to do a mini lesson, guided practice on a topic in improvisation. And that is because we are gearing up for a webinar on November 1st called Improv Games. And that's going to be some really fun exercises on how to practice a whole host of exercise, a whole host of ideas, from improvising with intervals, fun ways to practice modes, rhythms, blues riffs, and also phrasing. So we're going to go over some really fun games and exercises, and it's geared towards beginner and intermediate musicians, as well as music teachers who might be looking for some new things to try with your jazz students. So today, Jody obviously is not here with me, unfortunately, but she is off preparing for her webinar that she's doing today through Buckingham Palace. And it's a webinar called Creating Great Webinars, and it's alongside the wonderful sound technician Samantha Hindle. So if you're interested in checking that out, it's not till 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So go check that out. All the information's in the comments above, so you can go check that out later. So today, I'm going to give you guys a little improv lesson. One of my favorite things, motivic development. And I don't know if you noticed when I was playing at the start, I was almost going overboard with playing with motives, meaning I was repeating and manipulating and doing some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today while I was improvising just now. So when we're learning to improvise, and I'll speak from my own experience, we're often told, obviously listen to the music, transcribe, mimic what you're hearing. And that is the best way to learn any language, really, to just be immersed in the music, listen, immersed in the language, music or otherwise, to listen and mimic and just play along. But it's quite daunting at first. So one of the things that I found I would do was I would pick out one little idea. And I still remember one of the first ideas that took me hours to figure out. It was from Oscar Peterson playing Body and Soul, and it went like this. Or something like that. It started off like that. And I remember it taking me hours to get that down. And then once I had that idea, I just started playing around with it, because the idea of transcribing a whole solo and executing that at that time was really, really hard, and something to work towards. But in the meantime, take one little idea that you like, or make up an idea and do some of these variations that we're going to talk about today. So let's get started. Let me bring in my iPad. Okay, so here is a simple lick. It's just the first 5 notes of the C minor scale. And what we're going to do is do a few basic variations on this lick. And if you practice a lick that's small and that you can vary in many, many ways, you're going to find that that lick will get into your playing a lot more easily than a 4-bar phrase that you practice. So because you're going to be practicing it a whole bunch of varied ways, and using it in the same way that I'm doing right now when I'm speaking. I'm using the words that I know in different ways, and sometimes I'm really eloquent with what I'm saying, and other times I have a little hiccup and then I carry on. And improv is a lot like that. So I recommend to my students is don't practice whole phrases necessarily. I mean, yes, practice whole phrases, but really delve into one small idea and see how much you can get from that. And that goes for composing too, really, because it's all just composing. So before I get into the material, feel free to grab your instrument, your voice, or just sing along. In fact, singing is the best thing you can do. I tell all my students, if you can sing it, you can play it. I really know that's true. So feel free to just sing along. And what I'm going to do is talk a little bit, demonstrate a little bit, and then I'm going to play through the ideas and try playing along. I'm going to play them maybe 4 times because obviously I can't hear you guys and see how you're doing with it. So hopefully you can follow along. And if not, the video is going to be posted on YouTube and on Facebook here. So please go check it out later if you're interested. So here's the original lick. It's the first 5 notes of the C major scale. And of course it works on a C minor chord. And it can work on other chords too, but that's a whole nother live stream. You can save that for another time. So what we're going to do, we're going to vary the idea without changing pitches too much. So we're going to do some really straightforward, easy to do variations. And I'm not going to get too much into the jargon, the music theory of it. I'm going to really try to just give you some hands-on stuff you can just tackle right away. So variation 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that original lick and we're going to stretch it out. So we call this rhythmic augmentation. And essentially what we're doing is we're just making it so if it's 1 bar, maybe we're making it 2 bars longer. Right now you can see that I'm basically making 8th notes into quarter notes. Not that it has to be exactly just, times 2, for example, but just generally you're stretching it out. So here's the original lick. And then here's the stretched out version. You still recognize it as the same idea, just longer. So let's try that. So first of all, let's get that original lick down. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on my metronome and hopefully you guys can hear that. So let's play that original lick. It's C minor concert. So let's play that and we'll put a bar in between just to give us a reset. So let's play it 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do it again. 1, 3, 4. Let's do it again. 3, 4. One more time. Okay. So hopefully you guys got that under your fingers, in your ears. Let's try stretching it out now. So this one will repeat 4 times with not an extra bar of rest, so you'll see. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do it again. One more time. Okay. So that's an example of rhythmic augmentation, or stretching it out. And of course you don't have to stay with just this simple. You can do many, many variations of the rhythm, so try some more later. So the next variation, we're going to mess with the rhythms. One of the ways, there's 3 ways on here that I've noted you can mess with the rhythms. You can displace it, meaning you can move it. So the original idea was on beat 1. Well, you could start it on beat 2, for example. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You can even repeat it and then displace it. Check it out. 3, 4. 1. Now it's starting to sound a little more hip. So that's displacement. So let's give that a try real quick. So again, for this one, let's leave a bar of space in between each repetition. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. And of course you can displace it to any beat you want. Try starting on the end of one. And see if it feels awkward or not depending on what beat you start on. So 1. See, awkward to start on the and. 1, and 2, and 3. Kind of sounds better on the beat, this particular rhythm perhaps. But try it out. So displacement. So you can also just mess with the rhythms of the original idea. So you can see in the next variation here, I just have said rhythmic variation. All I'm doing is putting a tie and moving these 2 eighth notes into part of a triplet. So just changing it a little tiny bit, which just gets you away from playing only eighth notes, which can be fantastic sometimes, but it's also great to mess with the rhythm. So this next one is 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it just gives it a little tiny variation. So let's practice that one. So same thing, we'll leave a bar of rest in between just to reset. So that's number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, you can mess with that many ways. That triplet figure is one thing I get my students to do. Just to think about those eighth notes again, just you're pushing them over just a 1/3 of a triplet. So mess with that. So the next example, I'm kind of combining a few different things. I'm stretching out the idea, and then I'm also using anticipation, which is basically what I'm doing is instead of playing it on the beat, remember that the original idea was right on the beat. I started it on the and of 1, and I tied it over, and I also anticipated this one on the end of 4, which just creates nice syncopation. So let's play this idea. Well, this is what it sounds like, and then we'll play it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So again, it's stretched out and rhythmically varied. Let's try it. Again, no bar of rest in between. I don't think it's necessary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 3, 4, 1. Again. So you can see already there's a ton of ways you can mess with that little tiny idea just by moving it on, starting it on a different beat, repeating it, starting on a different beat, changing the internal rhythm, stretching it out, putting anticipations, moving something that was on the beat, on the off beat. So there's endless variations you can do just with the rhythm. But let's talk about one other thing, one other strategy you can use to mess with this idea. I call it heads and tails. I give my students exercises to take a little motive, this tiny little idea, and put something before it. So create a lead-in that makes sense leading in before the idea, or I make them extend it. So it's kind of like your idea is the body, and you have the head and the tail. I know it sounds kind of silly, but again, thinking of that motive is like the main sort of meat of the idea, and then adding to it. So once it's harder to put stuff before an idea, it's easier to sort of carry on after an idea at first. So I have 2 simple ways you can add something before the idea. A half-step lead-in. So rather than starting right on C, start on B. Little chromatic tone. So that's the first idea. Notice that I put it on a bar before the idea. So here it is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sounds pretty good. Another way you could put something really simple before this idea is maybe a chord tone. So in this case, my idea starts on the 1, so I'm putting the 5 in the next idea here. Sorry, that wasn't it. 5, 1. And again, just gives it a little lead in. So let's practice each of those 4 times. And again, we'll put a bar of rest. You'll hear me count you in. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's try the other one. So starting on the 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I also started this one on a different beat, so think for a second, what am I doing to that original idea? First of all, I'm not starting on beat 1, I'm starting on beat 2, so I'm displacing it, I'm moving it, and then I'm putting my lead in before it. So on the end of 1, here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm not playing it on the end of 1. Let me actually do it correctly. Here we go. On 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay. So that's adding something before the idea, and of course what you can do is sit down and figure out ways to lead into the idea. So maybe you find a windy way or a scalier way to lead into that idea, but start with this simple lead in first. So a much easier way to manipulate this idea is to add stuff to it. So you can see I have the original idea there, and I'm just adding 2 notes to it in this first example. And then in this next idea, I have, again, the main part of the main idea here. Actually, no, I have the whole idea stretched out and rhythmically varied, and then I'm adding a little bit to it at the end. So let's try this. So this is what it sounds like, first of all. Making it longer, adding notes to it. Let's try it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Let's try the next idea, 8, stretching out and adding in a little bit more. And again, I'll count you in because there's not a lot of space to repeat it. So here we go. Here's what it sounds like first. We will leave 2 bars in between each one. It feels natural. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. 2, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, there's endless things you can do by just adding stuff. So I'll often get students to, just kind of continue their phrase, or maybe I'll say instead of going down, let's go up. Remember that lick from way back? So again, you can add a lot of ideas, and you can combine all this stuff too. So it's kind of overwhelming. You could just, without even transposing anything, you can create a lot of variations. So again, it's really important to practice this because you want to be able to be flexible with the way you use your ideas. It's really hard to just plug in an amazing lick in the heat of the moment that you practiced one way. If you practice it many different ways, you're going to be able to use it many different ways. So speaking of using it, in order to use it and fuse it, in order to fuse it, you need to use it. I'm such a dork. Okay, so what you have to do is apply these ideas to a tune. So let's take Autumn Leaves, the tune that I was playing earlier. And we're gonna just start off, if you're a really beginner, start off by taking that first idea and just plug it in to any minor chord you see. And by plug it in, I mean throw on the iReal Pro. If you don't know the iReal Pro, it looks like this. And you can even select a few bars and it will play just those 4 bars. I'm not going to show it to you because I don't think you'll hear it properly, but it's a great tool for practicing improv. So what you do is put that on, so you know where you are, keep track of where you are, and then you plug in that idea on every minor chord, maybe just resting for step 1, maybe just resting for the other bar. So again, you could go, and if you're a chordal player, just play some nice voicings, practice your left hand, 2, 3, I'm on the A minor, and now we're going to try it on G. So you have to practice that, transpose it to G minor, and then plug it in. So that's step 1, just force it into a context, into a song. And step 2, maybe you'll force it in and improvise on the other bars. And it might feel, again, not like it's the most musical thing because you're forcing the idea in, but it's kind of like trying to learn a language. Sometimes you just have to jump in and sort of force in the words that you've been practicing. So it's kind of like that. So again, here's an example. The more you'll feel comfortable using that idea. And of course, you can use all the variations in the same way. So let's take the stretched out idea. Let's see if that works on the first 2 bars of Autumn Leaves. Yeah. So again, I can do that on the G minor later too. Now I'm going to improvise in between those 2 chords. I'm going to try to get that idea in my improv. So. I can even play with that last motive if I wanted. And again, it feels forced, but it's going to help you get those ideas in your playing. Now, step 3, something I used to do because I was actually terrified of improvising, I would write out my solos. So I actually remember Autumn Leaves was one of the first tunes I played in a jazz band at school way back, and I was terrified to improvise, so I wrote out my own solo. And I didn't know what I was doing at the time, but every time I've actually done that as an exercise, made a little etude, I've learned a lot about how to connect ideas, and just to work on new ideas, because it forces you to slow things down and think like a composer. So, you know, start writing something. Start with a simple idea and see where your ear leads you. Sing it, play it, write it, play it again, see if it makes sense. And you'll get a lot out of that, even though it's really time consuming, or it can be, but it's really fun. So that's basically my spiel. Let's just do a little quick review. Again, we had the original idea, we stretched it out, making the 8th notes into quarter notes approximately, maybe adding some other rhythms. We messed with the rhythms by moving the idea to a different beat, displacement. We varied the internal rhythm. We also stretched it out and messed with the rhythm by adding anticipations. We also added some lead-in notes, some chromatic half steps into the idea. We extended the idea, which you could do a million different things with. And then most importantly, we applied a couple of ideas to Autumn Leaves. So after this, go get your iReal Pro, put it on, and try applying some of these ideas to Autumn Leaves, and see where it gets you. see where you get with it. Yeah, so I think that's it for today. As I mentioned, we are doing a improvisation workshop on November 1st. It's at 12:30 Pacific Standard Time, which is 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. And I think the clocks go back, so just make a note of that if you're coming. And again, we're going to be talking about some really fun ways to practice, again, modes, intervals, rhythms, riffing, and phrasing. So basically a lot of what we need to practice when we're practicing improvisation. So I really hope that you guys got something out of that. And of course you can get as complicated as you want with ideas. You know, you can again do all of this with more complex ideas. So I'm just wondering if there's any questions. I'm just looking. All right, well, thanks for tuning in and hope to see you guys on November 1st. You guys can go check out musicartscollective.com, and we'll be back with some more live streams too. So have a wonderful Sunday, and yeah, have a good weekend.